What's going on, everybody? Brezzy43. I am back today with our next video. Last video we did our Pokemon Series 12 tier list for restricted Pokemon. If you haven't checked that out, definitely give that a look. But today we're going to be doing a quick video just talking about some Series 12 team building advice and kind of where to start your team building process and how to think about this metagame. So the first thing I want to do is draw your attention to this really awesome Twitter account that was created. It's called VGC Polka Pastes. If you're like me, you don't engage a lot with social media. I actually created a Twitter account a few months ago to better engage with both the VGC community and the MTG community because I do dabble in MTG still. And the VGC community posts a ton of information on Twitter. You can follow all the popular players. They share their teams. There's some really good accounts to follow if you're looking for some advice for where to get started in series, whatever series it is. But if you don't have a Twitter, which I'm not logged into on my computer, you can actually Google Twitter Polka Pastes. It's the first option right here, and it's this new account that was created not that long ago. It's grown substantially now, but it's a ton of whoever runs this account, they share Polka Pastes and team information, as well as a link to the Twitter of team creators. And it's a variety of different players. Some of them are well known, some of them are YouTubers, some of them are win a tournament or whatever the case may be. In this case, Mercury is a YouTuber, and they have a Calyrex, Shadowzation, Thundurus, Incarnate, Amoonguss, Incineroar, Blastoise team. If you click on the paste, you can see it all right here. I think this is a typo. This should probably be defiant, but this is a really solid team and a really cool place for you to start your team building. You can keep scrolling. I'm not sure who Fend is, but they do have Skyward Sword, Zacian, Rayquaza. Pretty cool team. You can click on the Poke Paste, and here it is again. You can keep going. Here's Joe UX9 Swordfish team, a link to Joe's YouTube video. Graham Amity's Kyogre Lunala, a link to his YouTube video, and so on and so forth. And you can continue to just scroll through all 54 tweets at the current moment of all these different teams. And so I've been spending a lot of time the last 2 days or so kind of looking at these teams as they get shared and thinking of like playing some Showdown and seeing what people are doing with their teams currently. And they seem to be following a very similar pattern, which is 2 restricteds, about 2 supports. Usually, I've seen some teams run 3, but the vast majority I've seen run 2, and then 1 to 2 Pokemon that can Dynamax. So here's an example. We've got this one actually has 3 supports, 2 restricted Pokemon, and then 1 Pokemon that Dynamaxes, and in this case, Calyrex can also Dynamax. And so I think this is a really good place to start your team building. Here's another one. 3 supports, 2 Dynamaxers, 2 restricteds, right? Another one, two restricteds, 2 Dynamaxers, 2 supports, right? So people are tend to be following this pattern right now, which is always common in restricted metagames, is to have your supports support your restricted so you can best enable them, right? But I think it's important to start thinking about your restricted Pokemon and what they want to do on your team. So Zacian and Zamazenta aren't great examples of this because they aren't allowed to Dynamax. But talking about a Pokemon like Kyogre, it typically runs Water Spout, Origin Pulse, and Ice Beam, and then Protect. Unless you're Scarf, you run Thunder. Sometimes you drop Ice Beam for Thunder. Sometimes you drop one of these 2 for Scald. But the reality is that because Kyogre has these 2 incredibly powerful spread attacks, Kyogre doesn't usually want to Dynamax. It can in a pinch. The reality is that all restricted Pokemon, under certain circumstances, with the exception of Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus, can Dynamax. So it's important to be flexible when you're playing and flexible in your thinking about the team, where sometimes you will Dynamax your Kyogre. But for the vast majority of the cases, you will not be Dynamaxing Kyogre. You'll be clicking Water Spout, Origin Pulse, Ice Beam, Thunder, Scald, something like that. But you'll save your Dynamax for another Pokemon on your team that can enable Kyogre. For example, like Tornadus. I've seen a lot of people maxing Tornadus in the face of Fake Out, so you don't get faked out with your Tailwind, and you can just get a speed boost, get a huge tempo advantage, and still get your big damage off. So that's what you should be thinking about with Kyogre. Pokemon like Kyogre, oops, not Calyrex, I meant to do this. Zacian and Zamazenta. Eternatus can't Dynamax. Calyrex Shadow is similar to Kyogre, where it can Dynamax in a pinch, but most of its power is going to come from just spamming Astral Barrage because it's 120 base power spread move. Um, and the other, there's a handful of other ones that are similar to this. Um, Calyrex Shadow is kind of similar to that. Um, Groudon is like this as well, where Groudon can Dynamax and get max Quakes, but it has powerful spread attacks that it doesn't need to Dynamax. So, um, so you should be thinking about what your restricted actually does. And on the opposite side of this coin, you've got restricted Pokemon that are significantly more powerful when they Dynamax. And the examples of this are um, Pokemon like Dialga, Pokemon like I've seen a lot of people maxing Palkia, so I'll put Palkia up here too. Other ones would be Necrozma Duskmane, um, Solgaleo. I'm gonna put Calyrex Ice up here too, even though Calyrex Ice isn't the perfect example of this. And Yveltal. So why are these Pokemon better as Dynamax candidates than the other ones are? And again, you don't have to Dynamax your restricteds, but these handful here benefit a lot more from it. Dialga typically carries Flash Cannon and Earth Power, which are phenomenal Dynamax moves at increasing your defenses, right? Palkia just really likes having double HP and gets a nice power increase from its attacks. Necrozma, same thing as Dialga, typically will run Sunsteel Strike and Earthquake. Oh, not Earth Power, Earthquake. So you get two really strong max moves, and doubling your HP on a Pokemon that's this bulky is really, really good. Solgaleo is the same thing as Necrozma, just a bit faster. And Calyrex is a bit of the both worlds because it does have Glacial Lance, which is a phenomenal Dynamax or a phenomenal spread move that doesn't require that you Dynamax, but it's particularly powerful to Dynamax if you're running high horsepower, um, and or Heavy Slam or is it Smart Strike that it gets? Yeah. Um, these two Dynamax moves are phenomenal on a really bulky Pokemon that can just start boosting its defenses, right? And then Yveltal gets max Airstream boosts through the use of Oblivion Wing, and then as well it can use Snarl Dynamax move to drop your opponent's special defense so the next attack does more damage. So these Pokemon generally will Dynamax for your team. Again, they don't have to because they're restricted Pokemon and they're incredibly powerful, but you should be thinking about what the team actually does when you build it. So let's talk about some really common cores just to start off with, and kind of think about what a lot of people are doing with it. So I've seen a ton of Kyogreization, which we knew was going to happen. So when you're building with Kyogreization, you should be thinking about, okay, what do I want to pair with these Pokemon because they're not really going to want to Dynamax, right? You still want to have your support Pokemon, whatever they may be, but which is probably going to, most teams are going to have Incineroar because Incineroar is just a phenomenal Pokemon in restricted metagames due to typing and Intimidate, and obviously I don't have to sell you guys on Incineroar. But the other, let's say the other support is Rillaboom, right? Rillaboom is nice coverage for Kyogre. It can switch into electric and grass attacks. It also pressures things that Kyogre can't, like bulky water types. And then now you need a couple of Dynamax Pokemon, remember, because Zacian can't Dynamax, and Kyogre may not want to in most situations. So Tornadus could work here. Tornadus is a nice partner for this. Another one that you could run would be like Zapdos. I've seen some Zapdos on these teams. I've also seen Thundurus because Thundurus is really good with Zacian. You could run Double Grass with Whimsicott, and then you just have this really strong Double Grass core with Tailwind plus Water Spout, late game max Thundurus or max Rillaboom and clean house. So typically we've seen this. It's not uncommon for other steel types to go on these teams. It's also not uncommon for you could just build your Tornadus to be more offensive rather than Focus Sash, and you could just plan to Dynamax Tornadus in some situations. So it's important to be flexible, but be thinking about who on my team is going to Dynamax. Let's take another Kyogre variant here. Let's talk about Kyogre Calyrex. So Kyogre Calyrex, we'll throw a Zapdos on here for max Airstream. Nice synergy with Kyogre. We'll also throw on Incineroar and Mimikyu because you need to have a reliable Trick Room setter. And then last Pokemon would likely be, could be another Dynamax or could be another support. Something like a Moongus could be interesting here because the nice part about Mimikyu and Incineroar is that they do have decent damage output on their own right. So you could just run something like this. And then you've got Zapdos, Kyogre, and Calyrex as all Dynamax candidates, probably in the order of Dynamax Priority 1, Priority 2, Priority 3. You can Dynamax Incineroar in a pinch too. So that's something to think about here. But let's switch restricteds up a little bit here. Something I've been having some success on ladder today with Palkiazation. Now this is really nice because you can build Palkiazation to have Memorization can't Dynamax. Palkia can and likely will, mostly because of its good attack stats and just taking big advantage of that doubling of the HP. So you could run, let's say you wanted to run like a hybrid Trick Room variant stuff. Let's say you did this, and then Regieleki for more speed control, right? So now you've got Palkia, Landorus as your primary Dynamax candidates. You've got Regieleki and Zacian who have good damage on their own, but don't need to Dynamax, or in the case of Zacian, can't. Then you've got your two supports, right? So this is another really good example. If you wanted to drop these, you could go something like Thundurus to pair with Zacian and give you max Airstream, and then maybe you want something that takes advantage of Trick Room. Maybe you want like Stack Attacka or something. I don't know. But this is really this could be really good too because you've got two Dynamax Pokemon and a Palkia that can Dynamax too, and you got your two supports still, and you've got your two restricteds, right? Let's talk about another one. Let's talk about Eveltalization. This was a really common. Eveltalization's been stuck onto these colossal teams, at least early metagame. Urshifu, Incineroar, and Rillaboom. So here you've got your two restricted Pokemon, you've got your two Dynamax Pokemon. In this case, they overlap, right? Yveltal's you're restricted, but it also benefits a lot from Max. You've got your two supports, and then you've got kind of like a Regieleki of sorts, just an offensive option. You could switch. I've seen some people switching this up for Gmax Blastoise, with which gives you the ability to still Aqua Jet your Colossal, but another Dynamax candidate. Still have your two supports here. Another one that could pair with Yveltal is Groudon. So here we've got pretty standard Sun stuff with Regieleki, and maybe you want another something for Trick Room, or maybe you want Trick Room just in general. You don't have to have it. You could go like Porygon. Whoops, Porygon 2. So now you've got your two restricteds, you've got your two Dynamax options, you've got your two supports, and then you've got your flex, right? So this is just a very standard way to team build that you guys should maybe use as a shell until you get more comfortable with it. But this is what a lot of people are going to right now because you're using such powerful restricted Pokemon that they're just really good. That's the point of them. They're Ubers. You're using both of them, and they should be the focal point of your team, right? So in the case of Yveltal Groudon, you've got Venusaur that Dynamaxes for Groudon and gets off a bunch of damage. You've got Regieleki to control speed. You've got Porygon to control speed. You've got Yveltal that can Dynamax and give Airstream boosts to Groudon, things like that, right? Another one I've seen is we can just change this up just a smidgen, and we can go Groudon Zacian, right? Groudonization is something that people are talking about. You run Thundurus because it's just a really good offensive mode with your Zacian. And then last slot can be Porygon still, or it can be something else. But I think Porygon's decent in this metagame. But now you've got your two Ubers, you've got your two supports, and you've got your two Dynamaxers, right? So very, very basic shell to start your team building with. The cores that I've been seeing the most, I kind of went over most of them. Groudonization's been really good. Kyogreization's also been incredible. Kyogre Dialga I've seen put in some work. I also think that Kyogre, Solgaleo. The reality is Kyogre goes with everything, right? So Kyogre, Solgaleo, or Necrozma Duskmane is really interesting. I've been seeing some people do this. I think that Palkiazation is really good. I've been using that a little bit myself today just to get some feelers out there. Um, I think that Eveltalization can be really good too. Um, I think that um, I do think that Lunala could have a niche like Lunalization. I've been thinking a little bit about. Um, the jig is still out on that because it's Dynamax and Lunala doesn't love Dynamax, but it is a really powerful Pokemon. Um, you could also I've also been seeing Calyrex pair with like Calyrexation being paired on hyper offense teams. Calyrex Groudon has some legs to stand on. Um, I think that Yveltal Groudon's really good. Um, I think that Groudon plus Calyrex is really strong. Calyrex Ice, giving you a really powerful Trick Room mode. So like sticking to if you remember our tier list yesterday, sticking to the S tier and the A tier, right? Kyogreization, um, Calyrex forms, Groudon, Yveltal. Maybe you dabble a little bit with the steel types. But ultimately, I think if you stick to the Zamazenta could be decent too. But if you stick to those top two tiers and look for combinations, maybe you can trickle in one of the B tier Pokemon. I think you'll find a lot of success. Just be thinking about your supports. Be thinking about the cohesiveness of your team. What does your team want to do, right? What does your restricted want to do? Does it want to max? Does it want to not max and go for spread moves? Who are your max candidates? Who are your supports? Where's the synergy? Do you overlap weaknesses? Things like that, right? I think that's going to do it for today, though. That was just a quick little analysis. I'm going to keep playing a ton of Series 12, get some ideas flowing, and then I'll share my ideas with you all in the coming weeks. So happy team building and happy farming ladder. Catch you all in the next video.